back to the Lyman and Healing Podcast.
Where laughter meets inner peace.
We're your host, Shaka.
And I'm Kiana.
And we just want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of your favorite podcast, Lyman and Healing. We want to thank everyone for liking, commenting, and subscribing to our channel. And if you have not subscribed us yet, ensure you hit that subscribe button. It means the world to us to have your support. So we have a great topic for you today. What are we talking about?
Today, we're talking about the big B. B stands for boundaries. Today, we're talking about boundaries and why setting boundaries is so important. Because it is essential for maintaining our mental health and overall well-being. But it can be especially challenging for us Caribbean people who are community-oriented, whereby, we are communal people, meaning that, we come from like tight-knit communities where we look out for each other, which is great. We want to keep doing that. Mm-hmm. However, what we're trying to talk about and what we're trying to learn how to do is how can we do so while maintaining boundaries, while prioritizing our well-being as well, right? So whether it's your family, your friends, your co-workers, your kids, it's important to learn how to say no. No is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. It is not mean, Oftentimes we think saying no means, oh, you're mean, you're selfish. And today we're going to counteract those thoughts, because a lot of times when you set boundaries, people are like, how can you be so selfish? But no. Boundaries is self-love, because it's important for you to pour in the cup. Because why? You are the cup. You are the cup. And boundaries aren't just about keeping others out. They're about letting ourselves thrive within our own comfort. So when I thrive within my own comfort, meaning I'm showing up for myself, I'm doing what's necessary for myself, I can better show up for you, because I am not coming from an empty place, a place where I feel resentful. Because what happens when your boundaries are often override, like people are not respecting it, you begin to feel resentful. And that's the truth of the matter. Wonder why you get tired of pouring into others. You give, because one, you have no boundaries, and two, it may not be reciprocated. So now you're feeling hurt, you're feeling, that nobody care about you. And that can be rectified a lot of times by setting good boundaries. So today we're going to explore boundaries, the importance of it, how to set them, how to maintain them without feeling guilty. And we also share some personal stories and cultural insights to make it relatable, okay? Mm-hmm. So what exactly are boundaries?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I know that we're talking about this topic, and boundaries is something that I learned recently. It's a huge, especially when you get into therapy. This word, that's why we have it. That's why I have it here, to remind me to keep them, right?
Yes.
When you get into that and you're stuck and you get on the journey of self-healing and growth, boundaries are gonna come up all the time. It's something that you have to learn. It's something that you have to know. It's something you have to do in order to protect yourself, right? And to keep growing and keep yourself safe, right? Yes. Boundaries are so important, right? So that's exactly why we're doing this topic. So boundaries are basically the limits we set for ourselves in relationships, work, and any personal space, basically. Mm-hmm. Right? They help us to determine what we are comfortable with and how we want to be treated.
Yes.
Right? So how we want to be treated is basically, what keeps us going in life, right?
Yeah.
And if you set boundaries for that, you will get that. So basically, that's basically the core of it, is establishing how you want to be treated, right? So boundaries can be physical, it could be emotional and mental, right? For example, like a physical boundary would be needing space, mm-hmm. or not having someone touch you or hug you.
In a particular way.
Right? Because mm-hmm. A lot of times, and this is a good one, sometimes some kids, I know you always talk about that. If the kids are like, go hug your auntie, go and hug your uncle. There's another way that we teaching them that it's okay to let our boundaries down, and that's why we have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Right, because that's a great example of violating a physical boundary. Because
Yeah.
if you don't want to be touched, don't force somebody else to, to get touched or whatever. So all those things would be a physical boundary. An emotional boundary might not be wanting to not wanting to share your personal details with someone, and that's a big one too, especially in a Caribbean society.
They want to know everything.
We're in a small place, everybody know a business, and they're mad when you and tell them.
Yes.
Like, some people be upset when you and tell them about your personal life, and it's like crazy, and they stop talking to you.
Yes.
Right? So all of those things can be emotional boundaries. And mental boundaries could involve protecting your own thoughts and opinions, right? So it's okay to disagree with someone. It's okay to stand by your own beliefs, right?
Yeah.
So obviously we want to ensure that we're promoting good beliefs, but at the end of the day, what you believe is important to you, and that is a big issue, especially in the Caribbean side, because it doesn't matter if you know, like, especially in like some Caribbean household, you know that grandfather is a drunk. Let me just say that, or something like that.
Yeah.
Nobody can talk about it.
Yeah.
You understand? Nobody can talk about it. Nobody, but you know that, like, oh, he's not drunk. He's just, get a little, he's just drink too much, or get a little, like, so all of those, so you do stuff to keep yourself safe.
Yes.
Right? But because everybody hold this belief or whatever, they don't want you to set this boundary, right? So all of that, protecting your own beliefs, right, is considered a boundary, a mental boundary as well. So why is it important that we keep these boundaries?
Yes. And I love what you said about the kids, because I have to reiterate, growing up in the Caribbean, your respect is such a big thing.
Such a huge deal.
Kids have zero autonomy over their own bodies, and that's not good, because when you teach them no autonomy over their body, they grow up to be adults with no boundaries. So if your child is telling you they don't want to hug so and so, respect that.
Correct.
Respect your child's space. That is their body, and they don't have to hug anyone if they don't want to. Respect that, and you might probably need to look into that as well.
Correct.
So why is boundary important? One, they help us avoid burnout, and we talk about that in another episode.
Yes.
It reduces
another B.
Yes. It reduces stress, and it maintain healthy relationships. When we don't set boundaries, we end up feeling overwhelmed, resentful, like I said earlier, and taken advantage of. Like, that is true. Whenever you feel that way, examine yourself.
Yes,
examine how you are in a relationship. Are you giving more than you're receiving? And we don't mean that in a tit for tat way, like I do X, you do Y. No. We're not meaning like that.
Yeah.
But the overall quality of the relationship, are you giving more than you're receiving?
Yeah.
Are you giving more than you're willing to give? That's important, because if you're doing more than you're actually willing to do, if you're a Christian and you're in church, they talk about, give with a grateful heart.
Yes.
A lot of times we do not give with a grateful heart. You give because you think you got to, and then you end up feeling resentful of doing it. So if you know you're going to feel that way, maybe it's not a good idea to give.
Yeah, and so sometimes you feel that way because first, you give 100. Somebody come for 200. Like, you're good with the 100, but now they're coming for the 200. They want all. So at what point, right, would it be enough? So that's a good boundary to set. It doesn't have to be completely no. Because you're okay with giving 50%.
Yes.
Right, but somebody come with 100. And that's important. Like, we need to tell people that, like, listen, I can't give you 100%, but I can give you 50%. And if they don't want to respect that, that's a boundary you need to set with them.
Yes. And, it is not about saying no to others, but saying yes to yourself. Like, I know
good.
personally.
That's good.
Yeah, it is.
That's really good.
Personally, I know, like, I have the habit, what I'm working on is, like, someone asks me to do anything, like, I automatically say yes. Instead of taking a pause, it's okay to take a pause and tell them, I'll get back to you on that. Check in with yourself, like, hey, do I have the capacity right now to accommodate whatever requests they have? And if that's the case, then I'll say yes. And if I check in with myself and the answer is no, then I owe it to myself to say no, because it's not about saying no to others, it's about saying yes to me. It's about doing what is best for me, and my therapist would say, what can you do that does you the least amount of harm and give you the most good. And that is honoring yourself, honoring your boundaries, because when you do that, you prioritize your own needs and your well-being, and you have to do so. You absolutely have to do so.
Yeah.
So how to set boundaries?
Okay, good. That's a really, really good question. So how to set boundaries? The first step is to identify your own needs and limits, right? If you don't know what you're good with, of anything will happen. I always say, if you don't know, somebody gonna know for you, and you don't want that, right? So know and check in with yourself, as Kiana mentioned, like giving that pause and say, what, let me get back to you. I think that's beautiful, because it doesn't have to be a yes or no immediately. Say, what, let me call you back, right? And take a minute to check in with yourself, because you need to figure out, am I able to do this? Because in the reality, sometimes we're not. We put we own stuff in the back burner. Exactly. Somebody want you to, like we talked about this before, you on your day off, somebody want your whole day off.
Yeah.
Right? There's
like you ain't got needs.
Exactly. Yourself. There's a boundary, a huge boundary to set. Or like people who don't have kids, like people who don't have kids, the people who have kids, it's like they feel like you get all the time, all the energy, all the money, and so as yourself, you feel bad because you do have more time, you do have more energy. So people with that, you want to give all, but take a minute to assess your own, like your own needs. Like, what, if I do this for this person, I'm gonna have to, I'm not able to do this for myself, right? And it's not, once again, it's not being selfish, but at what point you're gonna keep given to them, and then you're left with nothing. So take time to reflect, like what makes you uncomfortable, what you need to do to feel safe. Like, what, I don't like to go over by these people because, like, or whatever. Let's say I don't want to go by the party. Back to the grandfather example. Grandfathers get drunk and fighters broke out. I want to go to their party. I want to go because whatever. People might be upset with you, especially your family, because and be like, but you changing up dynamics, and it's a whole different conversation. Right? Because you being different, but it's okay, because do you feel safe? You understand? So a lot of times, even in families, people are abused, and their victim, their abuser is right there. And everybody in the family knows, and all these different things. And guess what? Nobody's doing anything about it. But you don't feel comfortable going over there. That's a good way to say no. So what are you comfortable with? That's what you want to know, right? So once you've identified what you feel comfortable with, right? Try to communicate that to your family. It don't have to be harsh or whatever, right? But just say, what? You could just say, like, I need some time alone. I need to recharge. Just tell them. It doesn't have to be mean. Just say, what? I have to do this thing for me, or I have to do something else. I don't promote lying, but you can make up an excuse and be like, I have to do something. The something could be sit down watching TV.
It's something.
It's something. You understand? But it's important to also be consistent with your boundary. If you set a boundary, stick to it. Because I'm going to tell you, that is one of the biggest problems when you start to set boundaries. Is that first you're going to tell them, hey, I can't do this, whatever. And then vex. And then they're going to come inch by inch by inch and try to tear it down. And then we right back to square one. Anybody in here will especially tell you that the boundary take forever to be set.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard.
It's hard, especially when you're sitting there with your family. When you're sitting there with your mother, your father. It's hard to do. Your siblings, the people that are really close to you. It's hard because you don't want to tell them no, right? So if you have a boundary, stick to it, right? Let them know that it's serious and you need this in order to, to live. Like it's really, really important, right? And you can always adjust your boundaries as time goes by, because a lot of times, even with sometimes we might want to do a lot for a person, right? Let's say that this person always comes to you for help for whatever reason, and then you set some boundaries. Then sometimes they become more independent. Then they come to you instead of every day, every 2 hours a day. You could assist with them. Like it doesn't have to be a complete no, but you could adjust, because now they're at this point. You could even willing to help them even more because they've gotten far. Like setting boundaries is not only about helping you. Sometimes it helps them because they become independent, right? And figure stuff out by themselves or whatever. Let's say that they come to you all the time. So all of those things, it helps. Don't think of it as a bad thing. It's something that really helps. So because boundaries are so hard to stick with, what do you think that we can do to ensure that we keep these boundaries?
So definitely we need to maintain our boundaries. It can be challenging, especially when you feel guilty or worry about it. I remember like when I first started setting boundaries because once again, when you're taught, you're trained to grow up in like a communal society, you feel like you're selfish for wanting to separate yourself and you know, holding back some of you for you. Like, because the reaction is, how dare you? You know, like everybody in the community is sacrificing themselves. Nobody knows what boundary is. So the minute you introduce boundary, it's a problem.
Yes.
Because people are upset because all of a sudden you are changing the dynamic, and that comes with a lot of resistance, you know. But it is so important to remember that, you know, taking care of yourself is not selfish. That's something I had to learn, you know.
Yeah, that's good.
I was even called selfish one time.
Oh.
That, you know, and it bothered me because it's like, but I'm not being selfish, you know, like people forget all the things you did for them.
Yeah.
But one time you decide, no, all of a sudden they forget all of that. No, you're selfish, you want to care about yourself. And that hurt because
Ridiculous.
I'm like, I've been there working like a dog day and night. I know, you know, they don't care about that. The minute you step outside of the box, that's when people actually, you know, care and stuff like that. You know, but one way to handle guilt is to remind yourself of the benefits of setting boundaries, you know. You're protecting your own well-being, and nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's protecting you. Have to be your protector.
Good.
You got to be the person at the front saying, no, you cannot abuse my time, my resources, my mental capacity, none of that. Like, you have to be the one doing the work and saying no. Nobody's going to do it for you. And if you were never taught this, it is so hard. Like, it's one of the hardest things I think I've had to learn, you know. And in therapy, like, you know, I never thought I had boundaries issues, which is crazy. But when my therapist was like, I didn't know what boundaries is, like in the sense that, you know, that you should have like healthy boundaries. So when she would say that, I'm like, it's not that bad. But then the more I examine it, the more I'm like, whoa, wow.
I'm laughing because it's just funny. When you're outside, you can see it more.
Yeah, exactly. You think you're out here just doing, you know, the work of the Lord, and then you're like,
the work of the Lord.
You learn a lot. You'll be so surprised.
Yeah.
Some of the things, because a lot of times we have blinders to our own life.
It's true.
So when you're exposed or when things are pointed out to you, you're like, initially you might be like, no. But then you have to take a moment and pause, because maybe that person is seeing more than what you're seeing for yourself, you know? Mm-hmm. But in the same vein, if someone reacts negatively to your boundaries, that's more about them than you. Because a lot of times people want to hold on to the you that had no boundaries.
Yeah.
But that's not your problem. That you is no more. It's in the past.
Correct.
So your job is to maintain your boundaries, and they'll adjust. Either they adjust or they readjust out of your life. So, win-win situation either way. But, you know, you stay firm, be respectful. You got to be nasty about it. But don't compromise on your own needs to make others comfortable. I always say, what's the point in creating external peace when internally you're at war with yourself?
Oh, wow, that's so good.
It don't make no sense. You can't be peaceful, be the peacemaker for everybody's life but your own. So today, you know, make that decision to honor yourself first and foremost. It's important, you know. And another step to practice self-compassion is to acknowledge that setting boundaries is hard. Like I said, you know, give yourself credit for taking steps to improve. And sometimes you may mess up. Sometimes you might fall back into old patterns. I certainly have. That's okay. You know, there's something new you're learning. Yeah. You're still flexing that muscle, but the more you do it, the easier it comes. In the past, when I was saying no, I used to feel so guilty.
So bad.
And now I'm like, I know that.
Look at you.
Growth. I don't feel that way no more, you know, but that takes time, and I'm still not nowhere close to where I need to be in terms of having a healthy boundary. I still got a lot of work to do with that. So it is important. It is hard, but it's so necessary, right? So what's your biggest boundary you've had to set?
Well, that's a good question. I never even thought about that. I think the biggest boundary I had to set was with my mother.
Okay.
You know, the problem is when you get older, especially in Caribbean society. I think that's in general, but especially Caribbean society. No matter what, you have to respect your elders. You have to, you can't say anything, you can't do anything. Whatever,
Yeah.
whatever they say goes. But then you become an adult,
Yeah.
and then they still see you as a child.
Yes.
And now you're setting these boundaries, and they don't agree with it because they're like, well, I'm still the boss of you. I think. I think to me, yeah, I think to me that they haven't seen you as this adult person, and you're trying to like.
I think there's like a clinical term for that in the Caribbean society and in other immigrant family that they infantilize.
Infantilize their children, yeah. So you're older now, and they still trying to tell you what to do or control your life or whatever, and not listening to the things that you want.
Yeah.
And it's very, very difficult. Especially with my relationship with my mother, because it's her way or the highway, and that's it all the time. So that was a big boundary for me to set, because she doesn't agree with anything that I want to do, or unless she feels it's good for her, right? If it's not good for her, it's not. And and so we had an issue with, I felt extremely violated per se, and I was like, you know what, I have to set a boundary, and she was not up for that at all. So unfortunately, it resulted in us going no contact for years, unfortunately. But that's a boundary I had to set. And I know it's hard for me, because especially being a Caribbean person, or a daughter, I feel bad, because I felt, and I had to work that out in therapy, because I feel like such a bad person, because everybody's like, oh, you don't talk to your mother. And I was like, I didn't tell anybody for this for years, because I felt like such a bad daughter. But I had to set that boundary if I wanted to do better for myself, because she doesn't want to see me grow. That's what I look at it as, because it's her way and her way alone. How could you look at me and say, is this way or nothing? What about the compassion for me? Once again, people who are upset with you setting boundaries, they look at it how it affects them and how it affects them alone. It doesn't think about the other person. And I know, it's a long story and all these different things. Obviously, we can't get into the entire thing. But a lot of people come at me but not knowing the full story. But I had to do it for myself, and I want to say this because we're not sitting down here talking about boundaries because we feel like I think that's one of the biggest boundaries you can set as a person. And I want to say, if I could set a boundary like that with my mother, you could set it with some cousin or auntie or uncle. You know what I mean? So really examine what they're doing to you and set those boundaries. Is it hard? Absolutely. But it would have been harder for me to not have those boundaries in place in the long run.
Yeah, that's good. It is hard. It is hard work, but, what is the alternative, Once again, being at war with yourself, you have to prioritize
and not
yourself.
growing. It's not just about, it's just, just a relationship. It's a lot of things about you. You need to grow as a person. You need to get better. You can't let them infantilize you forever. Like, you're not a child.
Yeah.
Right? And some people are treating you like a child and then even giving you nothing to support. Yes. Right? If you need to grow mentally too, you need to become adult. You need to step out there. You need to grow. So it's a lot more than just, oh, I'm setting this boundary. It's about yourself and growing as a person.
Yeah, so true. And I remember this quote just came to my mind about and this goes for everyone, whether you have a good relationship with your mother or not. But you truly become like your own person when you start mothering yourself. Essentially meaning when you start separating yourself in the sense that you're looking out for your best interest. Whenever you're forever connected to, in that way whereby you're stunting your own personal growth for the sake of others, it could be your mother, it could be your father, it could be anybody. That is never a good idea, because at the end of the day, that breeds resentment. And then you're resentful of your own self because you did not do the work to actually grow and to put yourself first, to prioritize yourself.
Yeah.
So it is tough, you know. Nobody's saying that having boundaries is so easy. It is not. It is really,
It's
really
hard.
hard.
It's really hard.
Because think of it, you're taught all your life to be one way, and then all of a sudden you're changing that dynamic. You're gonna either lose a lot of people in the process who cannot adjust to your boundaries, and that alone can be isolating. You can be alone. You feel like, you know, once again, like Shaka said, feeling guilt, like you're a bad person for putting yourself first. But what is the alternative? To stay in connection with somebody who is constantly violating your boundaries, who does not see your best interest at heart.
Yeah, doesn't care for you, because basically if you're asking them to do something and they refuse to do it, where is the care for you? They just think about themselves.
Absolutely.
And that's not healthy for you, because
At
you're
all.
just living for them only. What about yourself?
What
right?
about yourself?
When people make kids, you know, they need to let them go.
Yes.
Right? They need to you
Yes,
brought them
they
into the
become
world,
adult,
right?
let them go.
What they say, what the biggest gift is, the gift of life, and that is it.
Yep.
Let them go.
Yep. And they're based on the relationship you have with your children, you know, and vice versa. That continues into adulthood. Like, you have to be able to cultivate a good relationship. Otherwise, you might be watching from afar. And whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say one of my personal boundaries I've had to learn, the biggest one, is like with my family. I always joke that I'm the family secretary. Always doing a lot. Anyone call me, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? It can be various things, you know, and I'm always like, yeah, I got you. Because, you know, I'm very versed at doing many things. So I never saw it as a problem. But then I realized I was, you know, in a way, stunting other people's growth, because if they're dependent on me always, and I'm always doing it for them, how could they learn? You know,
that's good.
How can they learn? So I had to make a decision to be like, okay, what it is that I am willing to do, that I personally feel like my boundaries are not violated, where I'm constantly doing, and I'm feeling resentful because when people reach out to me, it's mainly about, can you do something for me? That was making me feel resentful.
That's a good
because
one.
you're not calling me to check up on me, but you're calling me to ask me to do something. And a lot of times I don't have a problem doing it, but then I realized I was starting to feel resentful, because am I just a worker bee for the family, for you? And that made me feel so resentful, right? And I had to realize, you know, what am I willing to do? I know, like I said, I'm pretty versed with a lot of things.
Yeah, you can do a lot of things. I can
do a lot of things. So I'm like, okay, I don't mind being a resource for people. So if they contact me, you know, like Shaka said in another episode, put the monkey back on their back.
Put it back. Give him it back.
So I would be like, okay, I'm willing to give you the information, like help you look it up or whatever. But you got to do the work. I'm no longer lifting the load and carrying it. No. I will give you the resources to help you figure it out. And, you know, I've been doing that, and it made such a difference for me.
Yeah, but I think about how much time it's taken away from you.
Yeah.
As well. It's not just that, you're stop blocking their growth, but what about yourself? It's stopping, you know, it's preventing you doing the things that you want to do or need to do. Because sometimes we're like, you know what, I have an hour to do something, now somebody call you, now you get 15 minutes to do the thing.
That is so true.
Because you put their needs ahead of yours.
That is so good and so true. Like, so think about that. Think about yourself, and think about yourself. Let's keep our focus.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
Because you can always make a million trillion excuses why you need to do something. But what about yourself? We never put ourselves in the equation. Mm-hmm. So consider yourself today and how you can apply boundaries for you. You know.
Yeah.
So this has been really good.
Yeah, I think it's a good episode. And people if somebody set boundaries, my God.
Yeah.
You can be upset. Think about all the time you call them. They don't even remember those things. Think about all the time you call them and they were there for you.
Yeah.
Right? And all the people who you could call and count to this person, you ever check in on them and see how they're doing? 1, 2, when last you did something for them?
Yeah.
Think about that. When last you give a thank you? So once people start to set boundaries, take a minute. For me too, I had to learn that as well. For boundaries, because I'm like, for me, I'm such an oversharer, and I would share, and I don't, that's always something. And once again, growing up in a small country, everybody know everybody's business. And sometimes when somebody tell me the business, I used to be like, but you know me business. Why ain't no you business? And I used to be upset about it, and then I realized that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That person don't want to share, and that's okay. So I had to learn to respect people's boundaries as well.
Yeah.
Like it's very much okay. So guys, if you don't know everybody's business, or you don't know that they have a reason why they're not sharing, they might have a reason why they're not sharing with you various things, but be there for them or whatever. Understand, like that's okay. That's okay.
That is so good. That is so good. So yeah, so consider all of this, definitely recognize the areas in your life where you need to prioritize some boundaries, set it, even though it's going to be shaky, it's going to be hard, you may feel guilty, you may even go back on your word, that's okay, just keep maintaining it, keep practicing it, because when you keep doing it, the better you become. It's not gonna happen overnight.
Yeah,
like you did not become this way overnight. So it's
correct.
Take a lot of time.
Take years.
And I hope that the people around you will respect the boundaries, because that makes it so much harder when they don't. Because it makes it so much harder.
Yeah, and you can do it bit by bit. It doesn't have to be just start like easy things, start small.
Yeah. And more importantly, check in with yourself often. Ask yourself, is this what I want to be doing? And if you're okay with that, that's okay.
Perfect.
You can do for people. Nobody's saying that you can't, And decide how far you're willing to go, what you're willing to do. And definitely keep those boundaries, okay? So thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you would learn something from this episode. Please leave us a comment, like, subscribe, share it with someone. Please, guys, if you have not created a YouTube page before, account, just sign up. It's free.
Just use your email.
That's it. And subscribe to our channel. Like, it will help us so much to grow and hit our goals. So we thank you so much for also following us on other platforms, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Lyman and Healing. So be sure to tell somebody else, share this with someone, help everyone out with their boundary issues, okay? So in the meantime, in between time, remember to
bust a lime. See you next time.